Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of Dose of Drew and another knife review tonight. This is the BK, I want to say 41. Yeah, there we go. 41 Mini in D2. K-bar. This is a smaller version of a larger knife. Double contoured, 3D contoured. Fiber or injection molded handles with backspace and all that. D2 steel, as you can see. And man, oh man, is this has it's cool with its problems. There's no doubt about it. But first things first, let's get into some empirical standardized measurements here. All right, so we go tip to tail, just around 7 inches. Blade length, 3 inches from tip to scale. And along the edge, it is 3 inches of edge length with the curve. As the crow flies, it is less. It's just under 3 inches. Maybe not. If I get the angle, yeah, just under. Either way, it's approximately 3 inches from tip to scale and approximately 3 inches along the curve. Let's get a weight on this sucker, because it's not bad. 2.73. So all of you inch or ounce per inch folks, this definitely has that. And it's got, well, not really any milling in there for weight reduction, but it has really thin liners. So we'll get to that in a minute. D2 steel. How thick? I'm going to go with 3 millimeter or a little bit less. 103 and a half thousandths. Approximately 1/10 of an inch, within 3%, 3 or 4% there. Oh yeah, and behind the edge. Again, we have a wonderful little choil, which allows me to really get behind the edge here at the base. Not taking measurements in too many different places. It's not the thinnest behind the edge, but it doesn't mean it's bad. Oh, it slipped off. Boy, oh boy, this is getting to be... There we go. 22 thousandths behind the edge. Not bad. A little bit thick and there, but D2 helps improve toughness. And this is intended to be more of an outdoorsy sort of hard use knife. Even though it's smaller, it is the larger one too. Also, with that comfort, it is meant to be a user. It is very much. And that's part of the design. And one of the things I'm going to start doing, instead of separating out the design, I'm going to keep talking about the design while I'm doing the comparisons. I think I'm going to keep trying that thing. So real quick here, the Spyderco sandwich. As you can see, we've got a little bit similarities in the way that the hand space goes. The entire thing falls within the hand space of the Paramilitary 2. And one that is closer is the Para 3 lightweight. And again, we've got, it's a little bit low on hand space comparatively. You'll start to see that as a theme here in a little bit, because this is a really, really great design and it's aesthetically pleasing. But the translation over to a smaller size isn't without its problems. Another bit, here's just a blur, and once again we see hand space on this still falls short of the blur, which isn't the largest hand space medium-sized knife out there. And not just any leak, but a random leak. And again, for something that is almost the exact same size, you start running out of hand space on the Becker. Okay, so if you haven't seen a pattern unfolding here yet, start to get the ergonomics, however, are fantastic with that. It's contoured in 3 dimensions. It's contoured that way and it's contoured that way. You have ups and downs this way, contoured this way. So yeah, you've got technically 2-dimensional. It's not, yeah, 2-dimensional. It's not one side's flat. It's 1-dimensional and 2-dimensional. So you've got a 2-dimensional contour here, which is quite cool. A couple more that are closer to it. This is probably the single closest thing that comes to it, in that if you don't choke up on the bug out, the K-bar, the Becker here, with the choil is approximately the same hand space as the bug out. And the Here it is, this VV Elementum. Once again, you'll see hand space starts to become, that beak on the back here starts to really put that hand space at a premium with this one. And of course, compared to my Wienar is longer, better spaced, may not fit in the hand as well. So there we go. This is a great design with almost a clipped sodbuster style right here. The swedge is beautiful. D2 seems to be well heat treated. And just for a quick little bit here. Oh, pretty smooth on the apex. Starting to get some old paper here getting wet. Let me try a different piece because that's definitely not showing what it can do. Right, a little bit of roughness. If you're like, oh, I like it to be, yeah, it'll do the curve. It's got the apex, right? Nicely apexed, out the factory, not bad. I believe this is Chinese made, not Taiwanese, being what it is. So it's there. Biggest claim to fame is that contouring. If you have smaller hands, again, mine are large width, medium length. This really only fits if I choke up on the ergonomic design on this sucker. It really only does. The aesthetics of this thing are great. It looks cool. And like some other knives I've had here, most notably recently there was a review of the Petrified Fish Warrior. Similar thing to this Becker BK41. The best thing this knife it is small, it is light, it's useful. It's not designed to be hard use despite its things. It is a 3-fingered knife in the saber grip, in the overhand or pinch grip. The thumb studs make a great platform, and that choil gives you a place for your finger to not hit the blade for a little stuff, but it's really the only full 4-fingered grip out there. Considering that the other knives that I have that would be something like that are going to be something like a Dragonfly, which is a much smaller knife, but if you look real close, similar hand space. So that's probably the single biggest problem with the Becker, right, with this BK41 is this beak right here on the back that would normally lock in, right? And you get this, it gives you great things for 3-finger, if you're on it for scoring. Get my little wood surface here, for example, for scoring, right? It does that well. The 3-finger space here is fantastic. It's not so good for saber grip unless you're really pulling up, and the choil's okay for not real hard use, but it's okay for getting up on there. But really, it's more of a place for things like picking a sliver, tip control, or if you're going to do the envelope evisceration, where you have, the sort of the opposite grip and you can pull it through. Or if you're doing something, more like a cord pull and cut, it'll do that well in a pinch. But really, it's more of a 3-fingered grip knife, which isn't bad. And the aesthetics I like. The brown, it's fine. It's something you could probably turn to black if you wanted to dye this. The thin liners, without providing any problems whatsoever, the solid backspacer gives it, doesn't seem to affect it. It helps keep it light and since there's no milling in there for weight reduction or anything like that, it's a full piece of steel. It does bring some questions about the lockup on it, which no problems whatsoever. There's no play or anything like that. There's a little bit of, breakaway right there. In between full out and there, right there is where I just hit the detent ball before it'll go. And it's on washers. This is, let me double check that, make sure. Oh no, that is washers. I thought it might be bearings for a second, but as far as I can tell, that's straight washers. So it does have the, at least pretense of being able to be used outdoors or somewhere where it's gritty, dirty. It's not something that's just so to speak, an indoor cat only. It will do work out in the field, out where there's dirt, out where there's dust and all that sort of stuff. But it does provide a little bit of more deliberate closing action and the mechanics of it. Opening is not bad. The thumb studs are large. They're placed well just forward to give you lots of leverage for it to snap out. And it really does make that opening quite incredible. There's a hole. It is a 4-way pocket clip, and the holes for the pocket clip do give you a sort of grease port, so to speak. In fact, if I go right there, see if I can do it. You can see if I put this there. You can see it even goes all the way through. There's a hole. So yeah, there's some bit on there. There's a bit of a large breakover point, right? Sort of far, but it also means that you have plenty of time and space to get your hand out of the way. When you go to do this, you have plenty of space, and it really tends to be more of a finger close than the drop shot. You can shake it shut, right? Takes it a bit. And the noteworthy points about this is there's a bigger version of this. This is a smaller version of a larger. The larger knife is a big brute of a knife and fantastic as far as I know. I don't carry it. All of the reviews I've seen are great. If this is any indication, which I feel similar to it about the Petrified Fish Warrior 2, the mini, this is a very strong argument for the larger knife. This design is okay, but if you have anything like slightly larger hands than mine or at the same size, you can make a really good argument for the larger knife and the comfort of that two-dimensional contouring, the grip, and all of the same features on this knife just enhanced to be better ergonomically. And its intended purpose is to be that smaller knife compared to the big one. For the people like me who don't or can't or won't carry the larger knives, this is an option for you to experience this Becker design. And it's a good design. Don't get me wrong. It's comfort. The pocket clip, no real hot spots, lends itself to the pinch grip or overhand grip extraordinarily well. Tends to fall right where it needs to without any hot spots, so you could use it if you had to. It's just not bad, and it's right in that $50 or so mark, like so many other knives. So if it's a design that looks, which gives it a great cost to value ratio, again, similar price. I'm going to bring this one out a lot because there's a lot of similarities between these two. Similar price point, similar steel. We're talking D2, K110. Lots of similar things. Not sort of contoured micarta. Very contoured injection molding. Nested liners with weight reduction, non-nested, but thinner steel liners. There's a lot of things that this goes towards, and it starts to become really a matter of preference, quite honestly. Deep carry. As a matter of value, it really becomes a question of preference. And that's where I start to get into my expectation. I expected this to be good. What I didn't expect it to be is more specifically for this type of pinch grip. This really is, it's a package piercer, a shrink wrap slicer, though getting something like control with this big, like getting the tip in there and maintaining control without running your finger up on that on something like a shrink wrap or that, the heavy clamshell stuff. This one actually gives me a bit of a pause on that. So it's not quite the, shrink wrap slicer that I would like, but it is a cardboard carver. This thing does just rip through cardboard with that high saber grind, the D2, and a very, very well apex blade. It does that. And the reverse grip, getting into an envelope and being able to go without hitting the contents, it is an envelope eviscerator extraordinaire. I expect it to be okay. And here's the thing. I'm going to bring this out so we can talk just about this knife. I expected this knife to be good, and it is, but in different ways than I expected it to be. I expected it to be very comfortable, which it is, but only in one grip. It does okay in the saber grip, but again, you're giving it a little bit, you're giving the butt of it here a little bit of a support with your pinky. So it's not quite what I expected, but it exceeded in the pinch grip, which I didn't expect. The comfort of the scales really just shines in this grip, and that exceeded my expectations while falling short in others. The D2, the grind, so that it is a slightly thicker behind the edge with a slightly more obtuse Secondary bevel gives it a lot of strength and toughness to really take advantage of the D2's, if it's well heat treated, the D2's edge retention. So it does very well given the steel. So there's expectations, it fulfilled them. And I don't really have any requests. I honestly would like to see this with something like 154 CM. I honestly would rather see it with something like that, or maybe 14C28N. Either one of those would, a more stainless steel than the D2 that may have a little bit more toughness, if not quite the same edge retention, but getting close. Any of those would get 14C28N at a higher Rockwell, around the 61 or so. 154 CM in that 60 to 61 range totally looks fantastic. D2, it's not that D2 sucks, it's just really like the D2 craze is, hopefully, I don't want to say it's running out, but hopefully it's going to be less of a craze, and the manufacturers are going to start making steel decisions based upon the intended purpose of the knife. This one's got D2 for strength, edge retention, not so much corrosion resistance and stuff like that. It'll get a patina if you let it. So, that might be their decision. I just don't really have requests. What this tells me is that I need to try the big one. The larger version of this knife, I think it may be the BK41, something like that. Anyway, it's not the mini. This is, again, a very, very strong argument for the larger knife as well, especially if you have larger hands. And that's kind of the big thing about it. I mean, this is most definitely a package piercer, right? A saran wrap slicer more than a shrink wrap slicer for sure. A cardboard carver and an envelope eviscerator extraordinaire. But it doesn't do everything so well because it's more of a light duty knife with the size and everything. If you have smaller hands, maybe less so, but it does lend itself more to light duty work unless you have smaller hands. And that's really kind of thing. It's built to be heavy duty, much like the large one, but then its comfort and ergonomic design tends to lend itself towards more. If you like that and don't really care, because it still does EDC work beautifully, it's still very sharp, it's a very good steel and well made. Even if you use a lanyard, it's there, it's just not in any way prioritized over pocket carry or pocket clip. I don't like to see string hanging out of my pocket or anyone else's. It's just, if that's your thing, that's cool. I don't like danglers. That's my thing. Just gets in my way. But this still does it. Again, the design and what it's for, very well done. Even that long harpoon, if you want to get your finger up there, it's very, very good for that. You can do lots of good EDC, and this will do it with aplomb and keep asking for more. The aesthetics, very classic. This looks like a classic. It looks like a Becker knife. It looks like a pocket knife. It looks like something you're going to use as a tool, and you can use for other things if needed. A knife does many things. And the mechanics of it, while not perfect, it's not bad. Like, it does what, if you're expecting it to be, a guillotine on washers, it's not. If you expect it to be something that you can pound on to try and, baton wood with it, it's not. That's a relatively thin spring right there, right? If you can't, let's see if I can't find something a little more light colored, right? So that spring for the liner lock ain't that thick. That's not going to have a lot of toughness or strength this way. So it can bend pretty easy if you're trying to force it with the right amount of force. It will just push that in and bend it and make it get out of the way if it can. Or you'll never be able to unlock it again. It's not meant for that. It shouldn't be meant for that. So no, it's not going to do that kind of stuff. But man, the rest of it does well. Your normal EDC stuff, fantastic. And while looking like an outdoor life, or looking outdoor knife, while looking, the part as well. And it's a smaller version of a well-known name. Becker is very well known in the outdoor specs. K-Bar, Becker have a long history. I shouldn't say long history, but they do have a pretty significant history of working together on some very well-known and very well-regarded knives. And its intended purpose is a small EDC. It does pretty good. it makes some compromises both for its heritage, the larger knife, and its aesthetics to keep it on there as opposed to some changes that might make it less noticeable. So it does have a little bit of compromise there, but not enough to do it. And the cost to value ratio is high. Now it's high in a very competitive area, so that doesn't necessarily give it a lot, but it's there. And as far as expectations, it delivers. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it exceeded all my expectations. It didn't, but it met them. It delivers on its promise. If you're thinking like, that looks like a knife that's going to be a good EDC, could do a hard stuff in a pinch, and it reminds me of my bigger one, or I have the bigger one and now I want a little one, or I have another Becker large knife and I want a small pocket knife to go alongside. This will do the part, and if you're expecting that, it'll do it well. As far as requests, I don't really have any. Like, yeah, you could do maybe some steel. I don't really want G10. I like the G10 would be too expensive. It would price it out of this range if you were to do the 3D, the two-dimensional contouring on it like it is. People can say it's two-dimensional because it's going this way and up. So yeah, maybe three-dimensional is going this way up and down and this way up and down. So yeah, it's up and down, side to side, and this way. Three-dimensional, whatever. It is 3D contoured, and it's very comfortable at that spot. And that kind of brings me to the end of this. This is a good knife, but it's not anything that's spectacular in the overall scheme of things, but it's not bad. And it really is going to speak to a specific kind of person. And if you're that person, you're not going to be disappointed. This knife delivers. For me, it's a little bit off. It doesn't really hit all of the things that I would like. Quite honestly, for some of the stuff that I would like it the Lander does it better. My Dragonflies, or even from we'll pull out another one here. Even something like this, right? The Sage 5 does this job a little bit better for me. It doesn't fit in the pocket as small, right? If I'm going to go that way, there's compromises on all of these other solutions that I would use. But that's my choice. Quite honestly, the most recent knife I have I've reviewed that brings the biggest competition to this and has a lot of the same problems is the Petrified Fish Mini Warrior. Just has a lot of the same great qualities as well as the same detriments. So these two are, in my opinion, very close to the same and really are filling a lot of the same niche in the market and would be in my collection or in my pocket. And that's where I'm going to get it. Not bad. 4 stars. Has a lot of good qualities for it, while just essentially being blah in the greater scheme of things. For me, this is, if you already like this is going to speak to you. It doesn't really do that for me. It's generic in its sense that it looks like a generic knife, and it does everything well. And that's not to say a bad thing, as Nick Shabazz has done on his recently in one of his, I'm saying a lot, in one of his videos. Excellence is the new standard. It is far more noteworthy when a knife doesn't deliver than when it does. Pretty much any knife you get from a major knife retailer or that stands behind it, regardless of the name, is going to be fairly well done. And that's a huge, this is a golden era of pocket knives. We have steels that are changing the game. Things that used to be hard to get, like only in the Rat 2 or D2, is now everywhere. 8CR13 is now the gas station knife steel, and we've got things like 9CR18 D2 154cm, and my goodness, 14C28 in the 40 to anywhere from $30-something D2 for like a Penguin, a QSP Penguin, all the way up to $60 or $70 for like a 14C28N. That whole section of the marketplace is dominated by steels that used to be mid-level, that are now our bargain steels. When S35VN, CPM 154, all the particle steels are your mid steels, and they're in that 70 to 120 range, and S35VN and some others even go up higher than that in some other places. you're looking at a golden age. When S90V, Magna Cut, and stuff like that is our top of the lines, and things like S35V, S45VN, S90V, and Magna Cut are our top of the line steels, and things like S30V, S35VN, and CPM 154 are sitting there. You know, Vanix, there's other ones, not to take out anything from the European steels. Just those are anything similar to those. Those are our top of the line. This is a golden age, right? This is a golden age of pocket knives. Not in the sense that, oh, everything is great. It's not the times where the big names are doing everything. It's a golden age in that it's really hard if you do just a little bit of market diligence to find a bad knife. They're just great. And this one's not bad. It's one of those things where being jaded and being a reviewer, I have to sit here and nitpick and find things wrong, like it doesn't quite fit. Oh, there's a little bit of, it's not the most drop shutty, but it's really smooth and hydraulic. That push down is the same effort at the top as it is at the bottom. That's just hydraulic and smooth all the way. These are complaints that shouldn't even be complaints, is having to nitpick. And on that, I'm going to leave it at 4 stars because it's a relative measurement. In the marketplace, yeah, this is good. But there's other ones that are better, and it doesn't necessarily have the best value to me. And with that, I'm going to stop this. 4 stars. Very well done. And a good argument for the larger knife. It's really hard to sit here and say anything other than this is a good knife that also makes a good argument for one of the larger Beckers. It's a design that's really good, the larger Becker folder or a Becker fixed blade. This makes a great companion to or a good just EDC knife in your pocket if this is a design that speaks to you. The aesthetics or anything like that, you're like, no, I like that one. That looks like a knife to me. This is a good knife. Buy it. You're not going to be disappointed. It's just not my favorite EDC personally, but that doesn't mean that it won't fit you better. And that's where I'm going to leave this. 4 stars. Very well done and very, very, very recommendable, and probably going to be given away soon as I try and work out my giveaways. For anyone who watches this video months, years, or anything later, and I do have giveaways, this was filmed before I figured out how to do that. So still working on that. We'll get that together. In the meantime, though, take this video, watch it twice. Comment as much as you like. Be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.